Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, Tyvis Powell, Jason Lloyd. Plus, ba-da-da-da-da, you're loving him, Mikey McNuggets. And so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show starts now. Booyah!
We have 50 hours before we find out if DTR has improved from his last start.
Or he plays like a VCR, obscure and obsolete.
Or if we could start saying his name with slow dots like D-T-R.
Ara.
When do you revert to calling him by his full name?
After he plays like PJ Walker, he will get.
Then he will be known as Dorian.
Tyvis won't call him PJ Walker. He calls him Philip Walker. Welcome to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. 50 hours from now, we're going to begin to find out. We're going to answer a lot of questions as to where the Browns are moving forward. Busy show. You know, it's Friday. We do 90 minutes here at 12:30. You've either got to go to your old school TV or you can watch us on the WKYC webpage or the WKYC Plus app, because that's when we go from 12:30 to 1, 30 minutes. As Mikey McNuggets likes to say, never before seen Browns coverage.
Yeah.
We think everything we do here is never before seen, right?
When you put it that way, I guess you are technically correct, but this is 30 minutes of stuff that we have specifically saved for a TV audience.
That's exactly right.
Is, I would say, some of the best we do.
For the big show.
For the whole, yeah.
Yeah. Jason, good to have you in.
Good to be here.
Can't wait to get your thoughts on where we're going with the Browns, what we're doing moving forward. But first, hello, Mikey McNuggets. Happy Friday.
It is Friday, guys. I am hyped. We got a huge show planned, and we have some news this morning. Quarterback related, includes Joe Flacco. Before we get to that, guys, FanDuel is the #1 place to be if you're using any sportsbook in the world. And right now, brand new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So, if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action than right this minute. The app is so easy to use, and they have a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and much, much more. So visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL, an official partner of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And we talked about all the different things FanDuel offers. Well, how about this bet you couldn't bet on yesterday? And our guy, Kyle Schuler, won. He bet $5 on both teams to score in every quarter of Thursday Night Football.
No way.
12 to 1. Bet 5, 160.
Wow.
So shout out to Kyle Schuler. That's what FanDuel has. Player props and fun little oddball bets like this.
That bet would make me nervous as hell.
But it's a fun one. You get to
It is,
no,
it's very fun. But, I mean, I wonder how many NFL games that holds true, where both teams score in all 4 quarters.
Less than half.
I would think so, too, just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Especially now, in this era of, stiffened defenses and points are harder to come by.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Wow. $60. I would have thought it would have paid more. $5 bet?
Yeah, it's 12 to 1 odds. So,
yeah.
Or 11 to 1 odds, essentially.
That's pretty cool.
That
is a fun bet.
Good. Yeah.
Very fun bet. All right, you mentioned it. Joe Flacco, not a member of the Browns yet. He's coming in for a workout. And let's go around the horn here and see what we think about that. Bull, you like it?
I mean, listen, I'm excited. Nobody's going to be excited about Joe Flacco. He doesn't have much left in the tank. However, he's probably better than what they got. So, yeah, I do like it. He's a veteran. Again, I said what I said about Matt Ryan the other day holds for Joe Flacco, even though I think Matt Ryan's a little better. But he's been, Joe Flacco is not doing TV. So you bring in the veteran. You say to him, hey, listen, we may need you in a couple of weeks. We're going to see what DTR has. If DTR plays well, I start him the rest of the year. If he's terrible, in the next week or two, I go to Joe Flacco.
I love that stat at the bottom. Yep. He likes playing in Cleveland.
Yeah. Sure
now,
does.
My goodness.
Last year he played 5 games for the Jets. The team was 1-3 in the games he started, of course. The one win was against the Browns in that crazy comeback. He threw 5 touchdowns and 3 picks, but he fumbled 5 times. So in total, he had 5 touchdowns and 7 picks. 7 turnovers.
Touchdowns and
7 turnovers last year.
I thought it was 8 turnovers.
No, he fumbled 5 times, but only lost 4.
Oh, and in the last 4 years, and Bull brought this story.
Yeah, I brought
pull tag board back up real quick. But he's been in and out of the starting lineup. He's had a couple
Right.
gigs. He's been out,
Yeah.
in, out,
There you
in,
go.
out.
20
over the last 4
touchdowns,
years.
19 turnovers. That's bad, but it's a lot better than P.J. Walker, and so far better than DTR.
Yeah. Jay?
I just don't get why they wouldn't have done this earlier. That's what I like. You knew P.J. Walker, Phillip,
Yeah.
wasn't it? So why didn't you make this move 3 weeks ago? And that's why I thought when I was on with you guys, whatever day outside the facility, I thought they would go practice squad off another team, only because Flacco's been out there all year. So if you wanted to go this route, you should have done it a month ago when you saw that Phillip wasn't quite it. I do like what a veteran like that can bring, just in terms of the film room and how he can help DTR on the sidelines on film. He's a veteran. He's seen it all. So that sort of leadership and mentorship is far more important than anything he can contribute on the field. He doesn't fit their mold. You know, the Browns have tried to keep all these quarterbacks the same in terms of what they can do, their abilities. Flacco's a statue. He can't move at all.
He's the antithesis of what they have.
Absolutely. So the protection really has to hold up if
Yeah.
and when he ever gets in there.
Right.
Well, that's
So-
why he's had so many fumbles, because he gets hit.
Yeah,
you know.
he can't move.
Yeah, same thing in New York.
So-
Like, he was a
yeah.
target.
And maybe they didn't bring him in earlier. Maybe he had no interest in being on the practice squad. Maybe he's got an ego and a veteran. He's been around this long and thinks I'm not going to come back in for a practice squad spot or whatever else.
Well, maybe he was thinking, well, with Watson healthy, I'm never going to play.
Yeah, I
but
don't know.
now he's got a chance to play.
Well, we talked about that
Yeah.
when I was on the other day, that, hey, these guys have to want to do it. I don't think
Right.
Matt Ryan ever had any interest in coming back to an
Right.
NFL team. Why? Why should he? Look at the money he's making, the money he's already made.
Right.
He has no interest in it. Flacco's made a ton of money too, but clearly I guess he's still interested. So we'll see. I think it could be very helpful just in what he can provide and experience. I don't know if he's really going to be impactful on the field.
Yeah, I think the Browns did this for multiple strategic reasons. One of them is they know that Joe Flacco can get hot. He's shown it before. Joe Flacco, when he won the Super Bowl, they were the team that went on the road as a wild card team 3 straight weeks, got it done, and went to the Super Bowl and won.
Played great that postseason.
Played great that postseason.
Gambled on himself.
Yeah. 2, on top of that, we just saw Joe Flacco smoke us here. We just saw him lead a comeback here when I thought derailed our season last year when we lost to the Jets in the way we did, 10-1 over here. Third of all, now number 3, he knows the division. He knows exactly. He's played against Harbaugh. He's played against the Bengals. He understands the division. He understands what the climate is like, and he knows what it feels like to have to be able to play these teams. And then finally, I think that the Browns are saying something to us. Look, P.J. Walker can be mobile all he wants. He still throw picks, and he still can get sacked and drop the football. I think what was best for the Cleveland Browns, if they want to move forward, is you need somebody that people understand where you're going to be at. Joe Flacco will throw on time. Joe Flacco will get to his 3rd or 4th progression or 2nd or 3rd progression. He's not going to ad-lib a bunch. And when you have the weather getting bad and you just want somebody not to turn the football over, I'd rather have a guy that knows where to throw the ball immediately and get it there rather than trying to extend plays and have turnovers.
Right, exactly.
Two
With his
other
arm
things,
and his
Jed.
head.
Two other things. If the Browns are dealing with a patchwork offensive line, which they have a little bit of right
Yeah, they
now, if Flacco goes in there, at least with that, the offensive linemen know he ain't going nowhere.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about, but what if he scrambles out there? He's not moving at all.
He's going to be on a spot the whole day.
And I would think, and I've never been a big fan of Joe Flacco,
Right.
even when he was good in Baltimore. However, I got to believe that he's got a couple of decent games in him. A couple.
Sure.
He ain't playing great. He's not going to be consistently solid 10 games in a row. I don't see any way. But if they have to play him, he's probably got 2-3 serviceable games in him, even if he has some that are a little below that. P.J. Walker's got none. 0. Zip. Zilch.
We've
We don't
seen
know
it.
about DTR.
Yeah. If you build a continuum, you got really like on one side and you really dislike on the other side, I'm pretty much in the middle. I'm ambivalent on it, and I think your point of having a player coach on the sideline that can calm DTR down, I think is invaluable. I think my only question here is, this isn't a signing, this is a workout. Why just Joe Flacco?
I agree with that.
If I'm the Browns
Yeah.
and I'm car shopping, I'm not just test driving one car. I want to kick the tires on a lot of guys. I want to see, what does Matt Ryan physically look like? Does he have a desire, to your point?
Right.
I also, I would, think that there'd be 4 or 5 guys, names
Nick
that we
Foles.
Nick Foles is one of them, guys that we've talked about, that they would bring in kick the tires on all of them, and then instead of choosing, he's it or he's not, you've got 4 or 5 to look at and say, of all of these guys, considering the body of work, how long they've been out of the game, this person fits what we're looking for best. So I'm a little surprised that it's just Joe Flacco.
Now, in fairness, maybe I agree with you. I'm surprised they're not looking at options.
Right.
They maybe they're considering some guys on practice squad. Those guys they can't bring in for a workout, obviously.
They can't.
So that might be it. Maybe maybe Ryan just has no interest. Maybe Foles has no interest in this.
Have you heard, Jay, that they are calling anybody else?
No, I haven't, but I haven't asked that.
Okay.
But usually how this goes, my guess is yesterday was not the first time they talked to Flacco.
Sure.
My thought is that they've probably been in contact with him for the last couple of weeks.
Sure.
And they've probably settled on that. And these guys, say what you want, they're proven older guys with egos, and you're not going to bring in Flacco and put him next to, we'll use Matt Ryan, and say, okay, now go compete.
No, I don't think you do it at the same time.
And that's where I was going. So if they don't like what they see out of Joe today, well, then they're not going to sign him, and maybe they go
Candidate
to someone
number
else
2 comes in.
next week. But clearly Flacco's
But the
top
clock's
option.
ticking.
Yeah, but he wasn't going to play this week anyway.
There was something that was said, I think I read it yesterday, that said because Matt Ryan was cut, they still owe him money. But if Matt Ryan was to come back and take another job, he would get whatever league minimum they gave him. And he got cut for a substantial amount of money. So if he stays in the booth, he gets that money. But if he doesn't, I think the Colts are off the hook for.
Well, it
that.
should be that they would be prorated
Just
from what the
offset.
Browns.
Yeah,
what
It
the
is
Browns,
offset.
Yeah,
I'm 90% sure it is
He
offset.
would still get the money.
But with,
I mean, at
always
this
think
point,
about-
At this point,
He
Matt
doesn't-
Ryan.
he's not counting beans.
I doubt he's not. He's coming back.
Now,
But
maybe Nick Foles, who wasn't a career starter and signing franchise deals,
Right.
maybe a guy like that might sit on the sidelines and collect a big paycheck as opposed to coming here
Right.
and working for league minimum. I don't know. This is what I immediately said the things I love about Joe Flacco and the things I don't love about Joe Flacco. And the guy won a Super Bowl, and he did it betting on himself. I thought that was one of the ballsiest things I've ever seen a player do.
Yeah.
He decided to go into the final year of his deal, and he said to the Ravens, I'm good. I'm betting on myself, knowing that he had a great defense. I can do enough to get this team over the top. I don't think there's much disagreement. That was the best he's ever looked in the NFL.
And then
Do you
cashed
guys
in big
remember-
time.
And he wrote the Ravens had to write the check, and he got paid for
Yep.
that. I like a guy that believes in himself so much.
He bets on himself.
He's
Yeah.
betting on himself. So, I don't think he's going to be a big factor. If he's playing at all here, it's probably a bad sign.
Yeah.
It means DTR had more bad games.
Real
Mike.
quick, and Jason, I want you to chime in on this, but do you remember just how good Joe Flacco was in that 2012 playoff run?
Oh, yeah.
I just said it.
great.
No, I know, but do you remember the actual numbers?
He was
fantastic.
fantastic.
Remind us. I just remember him being
I don't think he's done anything
really
good
clutch.
since.
No,
he
the best
hasn't done
stretch of
anything near
football
that
in his
since.
life.
But in the 2012 playoffs, and I looked this up because I remembered it being good. I didn't
He
remember
had
it
a
being
turnover.
this
Yeah.
good. In 4 games, he threw for 285 yards a game, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions with a 147 QB
That's
rating.
nuts.
Wow.
It's hard to play better than Joe Flacco did
On the road.
during that stretch. And
you know what that
G's
is?
right. They were on the road in 3 of those 4 games.
That's a guy going to the blackjack table, knowing he has a system of counting cards and knowing he can't lose. And when you get on those rolls in life, sometimes they perpetuate what comes next.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was one of those instances where we watched in real time, and everybody in the sport said, where did this come from?
He was splitting kings and doubling down on eight.
Yeah, and everything worked. He's sitting on 20 and asks for a card and gets an ace. That was just the kind of a season that he had.
Yeah.
So I know he's been much maligned since because he's been bad. There's no other way to say it. But I think he can be a good presence in that quarterback room.
That's it.
A veteran voice that, like you said, Jay, in the third quarter after a big pick that flips the field, DTR comes to the sidelines. I want to hear what Joe Flacco has to say.
Yeah.
Or helping them diagnose and break down film before it
Sure.
starts.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like looking for little things over here. This is what you should be doing, or how you should move. They needed to get a veteran for a number of reasons, and one of the biggest reasons is if DTR is playing in a playoff game or playing in a huge game, and you don't have any wherewithal to understand certain things. He could talk him out of certain things before he even does it. He gives him a little insight. So that's why I like the veteran. It didn't really matter whether he can run or not. I just like what he could bring.
I know we're talking to regress, but it straws at both of these guys. But if I had to choose between Flacco and Foles, I'd take Flacco.
You would?
Yeah.
Well, how about you guys? Flacco or Foles?
Flip a coin.
I mean, they each have a Super Bowl.
50-50.
Yeah.
We have no idea what kind of shape they're in. You know,
Yeah.
it's so
Flacco
hard.
Flacco played a little more last year. Flacco played 5 games. Foles played 1 game through 2 games through 4 picks.
I saw
touchdowns.
Flacco lead a last-second drive against the Browns where they couldn't get him off.
And
the
that
field.
was like one of the most unlikely wins statistically in NFL
That was his,
history.
and that's his last win.
Now, I know that we sort of olayed the door for that to happen.
Sure.
But he did it. He
Yeah.
still had to make magic happen, and he did it.
Bottom line is, if he's on the field for them,
No, it's a bad thing.
it's a really bad
It's a bad thing.
Playoffs are probably
Unless
over.
Unless there's an injury to DTR. You know, I mean, if he's
listen,
playing
crazy-
poorly and he gets replaced,
Yeah.
now you're on your 4th quarterback in the
Guys,
season. That's
crazier
never
things
good.
have happened.
Right.
Who knows? Listen, and I'm not writing off anything at this point this year. Any crazy thing can happen. Obviously, it's not good that Deshaun Watson's hurt. The Browns' chances of getting to the playoffs, winning in the playoffs, doing everything are lower now. But, who the hell knows? Defense has picked... defense is, I agree, I don't know that we're fully in a defensive era yet, but it is, at least this year and a little bit last year, is swinging towards defense. Now, there's other good teams in the AFC, like Pittsburgh and Baltimore and Kansas City, who also have good defenses, and in 2 of those cases have much better offenses than the
Right.
Browns. But, who knows? But I'll throw this out there. If DTR does play like absolute crap against Pittsburgh, it wouldn't shock me if Joe Flacco started the following week.
Well,
No, he is.
It's going to be desperate time.
Yeah.
He's gonna be playing.
Before we hit the break here, and I know we're chasing it, I just want a quick answer from all of these guys on something that hit me last night when I was watching the Thursday night game. And I don't know how this compares to other seasons. In my mind, it's more than we've seen in the past. But they'd mentioned that here we are, week 10, 49 different quarterbacks have taken snaps in the NFL.
It could be, started or taken snaps?
Played.
Okay.
Now, if they said started, I missed that.
Okay.
But I think they said 49 different quarterbacks have played.
Yeah.
That tells you that more than half the teams have used 2 quarterbacks.
AJ, that's start, by the way.
Okay,
Just
that's
getting
a
it's even
bigger
worse.
stat. I think that's a bigger, right.
And it's going to be
So-
50 next week probably because Jake Browning's going to start for the Bengals.
Exactly.
Probably.
And he hadn't started
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
So that's a stunning number to me. Do you guys think that will lead to a shift in the way teams currently view backup quarterbacks?
Yes,
because
and
we've talked about it.
they should.
They don't really. I mean, everybody has said, well, if Deshaun gets hurt, our season's over. Well, I don't know that should be the case when half the teams are losing their starting quarterback, at least for a stretch.
It's the reason why when you buy a mortgage on a house, they make you have homeowners insurance. They don't let you buy a $500,000 house and say, well, if the flood comes, if the tornado hits, we're screwed. No, they make you pay for it. Like, if you got a top-notch quarterback, you have to start allocating and thinking about, like, what's best for my team. If I know that the quarterback is so important, why are you devaluing the person that comes
Do you
in
guys
after
agree
that?
with that?
I think what's happened, and I don't even think it's about all the injuries this year. It's more about for the first time in a very long time, the swing back to defense. Because for much of the last 10, 15 years, if you lost your starting quarterback, you were done. So it didn't matter if you had a good backup because it wasn't going to be good enough
But
to
now
win.
defense can still carry a team.
Now we don't know yet. Can a
Right.
team like the Browns or Steelers with terrible quarterback play win? We'll see.
Right.
We'll
Hasn't
see.
happened yet.
But if that happens, like you can't even Foles, he played great in that postseason.
Awesome.
If he had not played, even though he's a nothing in his career, if he had not played great, they would have lost. You can't win in the playoffs with the quarterback playing like
I think
crap.
he was the Super Bowl MVP, wasn't he?
Right, he was great
So,
in that
Jay,
postseason.
do you think that they'll look at things differently?
Well, no. Here's the problem. You can't when you have a top quarterback, and we're talking elite status. It's the dollars that you commit to him. It makes it really difficult to commit significant dollars to a spot that doesn't play.
But isn't it throwing bad money after good money if you don't have
if there's no
a
salary
quality
cap?
backup?
Yeah. But I'm telling you, it comes down to the
So
the
it's a
numbers.
percentage of the assets that you're
Yeah.
allocating
Yeah.
to one
And
it
position.
would be a better world if the quarterbacks were not had their own salary cap.
If it was up
Listen,
to-
that's been talked about, and I think
Yeah.
I would love it if
If that
each
happened-
team gets one salary that they can exempt from
Right.
the cap.
Then you can devote more resources to
Right.
it. But
Right.
when you're spending the number that you are at that one position, it makes it difficult to justify spending a massive
No,
percentage.
I agree with that.
And that's why
At
no
a
big
spot that
spending
doesn't
team
play.
has a
I'll
high-paid
ask the
quarterback.
question before we move on. Would you rather have a rookie 5th round corner being your 4th or 5th corner, or a solid quarterback that could come in and
But
win you
it's
2
not,
games.
it's not that. It's your starting defensive tackle, or you're rotating in defensive tackle. If you're paying him $8 million, $8 million, which is the going rate. If you're talking like a mid-tier quarterback, if you wanted to vote, what did Jacoby get this year?
He got $8
from
million, I
Washington?
think, didn't he?
So if you want to spend $8 million, what's Elijah Moore making, or what's some of these defensive tackles
No, I
making?
have
that
Somebody
they brought
else
in?
somewhere.
That's
Yeah.
the trade-off.
Sorry, Mike,
would you
I
rather have
extended that-
Maurice
that
Hurst, or
topic.
would you rather
No,
have
you're all good.
Jacoby Brissett?
Yeah.
I'll take Maurice Hurst.
Yeah.
Hey, for example, and this is just the actual cap hit this year of players who make more than $8 million, so more this year, based on the restructures, than Jacoby Brissett makes is only Denzel, Garrett, and Cooper, and Deshaun
That make more than 8.
in the cap hit according to Spotrac right now.
Yeah, so you'd literally be prioritizing your backup quarterback at that number as a top 5 player. And I don't know how teams can do that.
How much did Jacoby Brissett made? What, $8 million?
Hey, but you can't go just off the cap hit. There's bonus money in there, and you can restructure deals and kick the can down the road.
It gets really confusing.
So that's. But the bottom line is, even if you have to pay him a signing bonus and a base salary, put that together. If that guy's making $8 million this year, do you really want to spend that $8 million, $10 million, $7 million, whatever it is?
In the end, they
on
should
a
have kept Josh
position-
Dobbs.
on-
They should have kept Josh Dobbs.
Well, or at least, I think we talked. I can't remember when I was in.
Okay.
You had an opportunity. You knew you had a need, and you didn't do anything about it. I won't even crush him for trading Josh in the first
Yeah,
place.
I'm with you, but the fact that they didn't make a bigger effort to bring him back when they knew that play at that
Him or
position was an
anyone.
issue.
Him or anyone.
Yeah, and I know Dee Dee was on yesterday, and she said, well, now we have the benefit of the results to make that argument. Well, look,
We were
that's
making that
what
argument
being
before.
a GM and a front office employee in the NFL is all about. Speculation. Predicting who's going to hit and
Yeah.
who's going to miss.
And if
in this one,
DTR
they made
plays
the
well,
wrong
then
bet.
none of this matters. If he doesn't, it's very fair to be critical of Berry.
You're 100% right.
Let's just move on right to the next topic here, guys. And I'll let Bull, do you want to actually set this up? You and I have talked about this. It's TJ Watt versus Myles Garrett. And there's been a little flip-flopping, and I'm curious now where everyone stands on this
It's
discussion.
going to be more
Bull,
flip-flopping when we're
if
done.
you want to set this up. let the
Okay,
people know.
so obviously before the last time the Browns and Steelers played, we did something we're not doing today, but we've done on many Fridays where we draft the players. If we were taking the two teams, we draft the players. We had a lot of fun with that last week. It was a very intricate conversation. Now, we all agreed last time the Browns played the Steelers that we draft Myles Garrett ahead of TJ Watt. After the game, TJ Watt had a bigger impact in that game than Myles Garrett did. Jay, you flip-flopped on that one to TJ Watt.
The very next day.
Yes.
I think because we asked it the next day,
Yes.
Watt or Garrett, and I
Right.
said,
after
you know
the big
what?
impact,
I've seen another
they were
splash play. I
close
went
enough
to-
for you that flip-flop.
Yeah.
So the question is, now that we're, how many weeks is it now? 7 since that game, whatever it is, roughly?
Well, that was week 2, and we're going into week 11,
Okay,
right?
so
Correct.
So
So
9
9
weeks
weeks, 9
later.
weeks, yeah.
So 2 months and change later. Where do we feel right now?
Can I start on that?
Yeah, go,
So
please.
now you can give me Garrett.
Yeah.
And I had this. It's funny. Even before I knew we were doing this on the show today, we had a very similar conversation in a group upstairs going into the Pittsburgh week and then after. And we all kind of were in agreement that, gosh, Watt just is making these splash plays.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you want your franchise guy to do. For me, by the way, and I think I said this at the time, it's like picking between Babe Ruth or Hank Aaron.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
These guys are great elite players. And so, it's not the Brady or Manning comparison because Brady obviously had so much more team success. With these guys, it's splitting hairs. And for me, I said I'm putting Watt above Garrett because of the splash plays. I think that Garrett had more to offer, and I wanted to see him have a bigger impact when the game was in the balance because I hadn't seen that from him. So, reserving the right to change our mind, as we all do and should as we're taking in more information.
As more information you get.
I now believe that I again have Garrett slightly ahead of Watt. And the reason is he has made those splash plays that we talked about so often with TJ Watt on a consistent enough basis that now not only is he the most dominant player at his position or among them, he also is raising his level when the game dictates it. And for that reason, right now, I have Myles Garrett over TJ Watt.
As close as it is, do you have Myles Garrett further ahead of Watt, even if it's by a tiny bit, than you did before those two teams played the first time.
Yes, I do. Now, again, splitting
Tiny
hairs.
bit,
So,
yeah.
Bull, if this was a 10-mile race,
Yeah.
and we're at mile 7,
Yeah.
Before Myles was ahead by 10 feet,
Yeah.
and then TJ moved ahead by 10 feet.
Yeah.
But now I think Myles is ahead by 15 feet.
Yeah,
So,
that sounds
is
reasonable.
it something that could be made up in 2 games or in this game? Possibly.
Yeah.
We'll weigh this after the game. But again, I wasn't disparaging Myles Garrett,
No.
nor am I disparaging TJ Watt right now by saying I think Garrett's better. I think these guys are Hall of Fame trajectory. I think they're both top 3 or 4 play. Hell, I think they're probably the front runners for Defensive Player of the Year, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're
I
1
mean,
and 2 right now. And Bill Barnwell's
so
midseason projection.
for me, when you say one's better than the other, it sounds like it's disparaging to
Right.
whoever is. But for me, it's always been close. But right now, give me our guy.
By the way, Mike, before we continue, those numbers, right, outside of the tackles, Watt's got a slight edge, a very slight edge on the rest. But how many more has Watt played? Watt's played more games than Myles Garrett, right?
That's a good question.
I'll tell you right now. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
I think he has.
He's had some injuries too, though. TJ has.
That's
last year
true.
he missed a lot of
Did
time.
he come in the year before Myles, though?
Same draft class.
Oh,
Same draft class.
He
Wow.
was the pick after David Njoku.
Correct.
Watt was.
so they could have drafted Watt and
Could you
Myles
imagine if
Garrett.
they had Myles Garrett?
TJ has played 3 more games, 96 to 93.
Can you put the numbers up again, just for now that we know that? I think it gives it better context. They average about a sack a game, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And it's funny, TJ has 2.5 more sacks. He's played 3
Three
more
more
games.
games, yeah.
The tackles for loss, I think TJ is better against the run. Although Myles' arrow is going up for me against
Yes,
the run.
he's been better against the run. But one thing
forced
TJ Watt
fumbles, though, stands
has
out.
always had a major advantage over Myles Garrett is, until this year, talent around him.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That is very true.
Yeah.
And Cam Hayward's back this game.
He is
was
back.
not there in week
Yes.
2.
What do
We'll
you-
talk about what
what
impact
do you
that will
guys
have
think?
on the
I've
game,
noticed
too.
we talk about the run, and this is going to sound like a criticism, and I don't mean it to be. I think Myles takes himself out of some of the running
With
plays.
the way he pass rushes.
With the way that he pass
I
rushes.
agree with
I've
that.
seen teams go right at him because they know he's not going to be there.
And it's worked for big plays in the past.
because they're
You
running the
pointed one
spot
out
he
last week.
vacated. So I noticed that, especially the last couple of weeks. I've been trying to watch him more and more and more, and he just the angles that he takes or some of the moves, he just takes himself right out.
Is
of some
that
of
a
the running
trade-off
plays.
you're willing to
Yes.
live with? To me, it's like striking out and home runs
Yes.
in
Right.
baseball. I'm fine with that.
I would actually rather that. His offsides drive me crazy.
Yeah, that's a
because
problem.
he doesn't.
Didn't need to.
He doesn't need to. That's exactly right. He's so big, fast, and strong. He doesn't need that extra half second.
Yeah.
And so it's those 5-yard gimmies that drive me crazy.
And
I would
he
rather
isn't-
take yourself out of running plays if you want. You got 10 guys behind you to clean it up.
Yeah.
Just don't jump.
But it's the jumping that
Yeah.
just drives me. And he doesn't care. Like he's like, I'll get it back. Like,
So to him, that's a
Yeah.
strikeout to a power
Right,
hitter.
right.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
exactly
but really, I think it's more punitive because if it's 2nd and 7, now it's 2nd
Second
and 2.
two.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if it's 1st and 10, now it's 1st and 5.
Yeah.
Myles Garrett is a nuclear weapon. He's just simply better than everybody, and he's so far ahead of everybody.
Even with the numbers, he trails in all the stats.
Here's the thing. You got to think about it. Joe Woods was the worst coordinator I've ever seen for 3 years. He lined Myles Garrett up there to get double team and triple team and did nothing about it. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
Myles Garrett played on a team that didn't win a game. What, they won one game, won 15, and he still had 8, 9, 10 sacks that year. Like, he's playing now with guys that are now just up to his level, but the Emmanuel Ogbas of the world, come on, man. He played with the Danny Sheltons of the world. This guy, TJ Watt, is playing with one of the best defensive tackles of our time, and Cameron Hayward. He always has a running mate at the other side.
Yeah,
they
he
always have an impact safety and impact linebackers.
And he's been coached by the same defensive guy for his entire time there. Think about this for a minute, which I'm with G. Maybe not as big a gap as you think, a little bigger than you think. If it had been reversed, let's say Myles Garrett had been a Steeler his whole career and T.J. Watt had been a Brown, I think T.J. Watt's still very good, but not as good as he is in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, that's
I
fair.
think Myles Garrett's even better than he was
He has
here.
120 sacks.
Well, because he's got
Yeah,
better talent
that's
around him.
right.
And what's amazing is, I think we'll all agree this is his best season so far.
Yes.
And this is really the first time that this organization has surrounded him with the kind of talent he deserves.
And
to be
he
playing
stayed
with.
healthy.
And
That's been a key part of it,
to
too.
your point,
Yeah.
about if he was a Steeler,
Yeah.
he'd be playing a lot more bigger games. And it's just human nature. When
Yeah.
you're just getting beaten down
No, you're
week
right.
after week and you're getting your ass kicked as a team, it takes some of the edge off.
true.
And it's just human nature. And
Right.
if you're in the Steelers and you're in playoff contention every single year,
That's a great point.
It matters.
We've forgotten the 0-16 and the 1-15.
Yeah.
In just how demoralizing and how small every one of those games felt. When you're 0-8,
Yeah.
you're thinking about January.
And think about this, guys, is TJ Watt, especially earlier in his career with Roethlisberger, has played in way more games where the Steelers have been up and the defense knows that the offense
Pinning
has to
the
throw
ears
the
back
ball.
and coming
So
at
it's
you.
easier.
Yeah.
Myles Garrett's not played in that many games like that because the Browns' offense, for the most part, since he's been here, has not been great.
If memory serves, he was not here for 1-15. 1-15 is what
Led
got
to
them
him
that
being
pick.
coming here.
Gotcha.
So he was here for
0-16.
He
0-16.
was here for some bad football.
Hey, thanks, Jason. That makes it much better.
Well, no, I'm just
No, he's
saying.
just clearing it up.
Because
He's
as we're
clearing it
saying,
up because
we're making it sound like he was here for 1-15
No, he
and
wasn't.
0-16.
Yeah, he was here for one of those.
He was
the
here for
worst
one
of
of
the
them.
two.
Just like Joe Thomas, we don't even really know in context how good Joe Thomas is because he's never going to get credit for anything because they're going to say, even when you bring up the argument, who's the best left tackle ever to play? They're going to say, how can I make him the best left tackle? And he never even was in the playoffs.
He did go in the Hall of Fame.
But-
it's not like
but-
he's being
but-
disregarded.
you
but
can count the meaningful games that he played in on one hand.
Right.
Like, so his parallel to Myles Garrett's is so because they're so good that people won't give them a look or people they underestimate their skill level based on the fact that the Cleveland Browns, you get credit for how good your team is. And the Browns just have not been good enough.
This would be very hard to find out. Maybe, Mike, this would be like a 2 weeks of deep dive. But I would love to know the percentage of plays, this first one's probably not that hard to find. It's probably easy. That Myles Garrett got double teamed versus TJ Watt. I would bet Myles Garrett
gets doubled significantly more.
More in their career, which, I mean, that alone. The fact that their stats are so close, when Myles Garrett gets double teamed way more,
He
that
gets
tells you
double
one
teamed
thing.
more because there's more talent to worry about on the Steelers' defensive line. There's nobody else that the Browns are worried about.
I think it's
Or the
that.
Browns
I think
defenders,
that's
rather.
most of it. I also think if I'm an offensive lineman, I'm more worried about Myles Garrett than I am of TJ Watt, even though TJ Watt's great.
Right.
And also, I'd love to know the percentage of pass rush snaps where the offense you're going against, they're in a situation when you know they're throwing the ball because they're down big or
Third
it's third
more
long.
than 10.
I would guess that TJ Watt has had way more plays in that situation. That would be almost impossible to find.
It would take forever. There was
Yeah.
one stat that comes to mind when you talk about that.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a stat around Ben Roethlisberger that every game he played, the playoffs were still in play for his entire
I think
career?
there was one
That's
game.
Tom Brady. That's Tom
No,
Brady.
I think it was Roethlisberger.
I think you're
that we
right,
heard
but I
that
think it
about.
ended up being one game. That
Maybe
he
in his
didn't,
last
right
season.
at the end or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean,
but they were exactly, yeah.
which is stunning. I mean, and
it's still been the case, even with not as good quarterback since. But it's still been the case.
they're always there. They're always in the mix. It's crazy.
We're going to bring Quincy Carrier here 1 sec. I have a stat at least last year, but I did a really quick search. But last season in 2022, Myles Garrett was double teamed on 37% of his pass rush attempts. TJ Watt was at 26, so 11% more.
I mean, that's a
Myles Garrett
huge difference.
than TJ Watt.
Yeah.
And with that, let's welcome in our one of our favorite Browns YouTube hosts on the interweb. It is Quincy Carrier. What's up, Quincy?
How you doing? Thank you for having me on.
Quincy.
Bro, you look like you're hunkered down in a cave. You're ready for battle right now.
It's like 45 degrees outside. You know, I'm getting chilly.
Mikey McNuggets said that we had to bring this up, so I prefaced my question
That's right.
with that. He wanted me to start with, what are the odds, as you did last year, picking Deshaun Watson to run the table the last six,
we got it.
that DTR does
knew
that
it.
the
You
last
got to give
eight?
the context.
We got to give the context for those who were not with us. So when Deshaun Watson was going to start the final 6 games, we had Quincy on, and he said that the Browns had a better than 50% chance going 6-0, and I lost my mind because that felt insane to me.
It did to all of us.
And of course, it didn't happen. But my problem wasn't even predicting it. It's just the 50% part.
So who's the leader of the Kool-Aid
So-
Mafia then? Is it
Yes.
you or is it G?
We talked about this yesterday.
Did you?
We've had a 50-50 split between me and G, right?
Going
He
back and
has
forth?
the Kool-Aid Mafia, and then I have the Flavor Aid family, and we kind of work together that way.
awesome.
It's McDonald's and Burger King, you know what I mean? Like, we
I
just
get
gotta
yeah,
bring
they're
it
both,
together in
they're
these
both
kind of
recognizable.
moments.
Someone, I have to bring this up because someone told me yesterday to, when you see G on the show tomorrow, please tell him one thing for me. And I said, what? And so I want your honest reaction here. He said, will you please tell G. Bush that everyone that drank the Kool-Aid died?
That's I thought I saw the documentary.
Don't
about
let them
cult
put that
leaders
on you, G.
That's right. That's what we're
Jim
talking
Jones,
about.
the
Yeah.
Guyana,
That's the
mixed
purple
up
Kool-Aid.
purple Kool-Aid and threw some cyanide in it. And the next thing you know, there's aerial photos of 1,000 people laying there dead from drinking Kool-Aid.
Yeah, man. See, you
But
don't
his Kool-Aid spelled differently.
But here's the thing: you don't got to worry about me and Quincy doing that. They don't give black people cyanide. We can't even order that. Like, there's no. Where do you get that from? What do you? Yeah, we can't be Unabombers.
If I
We don't-
Google that, they gonna put me on a
Quincy.
watch list. So, like, I'm good.
Percentage chance that DTR goes 8-0. Go.
No, that's not happening, right? There's probably like a 5% chance of that happening. I'm not gonna fall into that trap again.
Okay.
If he
I
does that,
told
we've
you
got a
that
hell
he
of a
was gonna
story.
Run that play on me.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, if he does, then like you're talking about a Brock Purdy level play, and I think that is the absolute max you can even dream for out of DTR
If
in
he
this
goes
situation,
8-0,
right?
we're going to have a
We're
hell
being
of a summer
realistic.
debate. We're going to have an
Oh, my
unbelievable
God.
summer
Can you
debate.
You weren't kidding.
Yeah,
Hey, that's one of them good problems, though. Like, right?
Yeah.
But that's one of those good problems to have.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
We'll
if you're
welcome that
arguing about
debate.
which quarterbacks would be better, like that, what this team's had the last 20 years, I mean, that would be welcome versus what it's been.
Yeah, I agree.
Quincy, what is your what are your expectations for DTR? And what are those expectations moving forward? And do you think the Browns can still, have their goals in front of them in terms of the division and making the playoffs?
It's hard for me to have expectations for DTR because we just haven't seen that much. I don't think that Baltimore game is really a good read on who he's going to be for the rest of his career or even who he's going to show himself to be because he wasn't prepared. He's admitted it himself. Nobody thought he would play in that game, and then he had to play. It's a rough look for him, right? So I don't know if I have expectations, but I do have goals for him, right? Like I think if you're DTR and you want to keep this team on track, you're probably looking somewhere within the range of like 1,800 yards and 13 total touchdowns, whether it be rushing and passing. And 6 total turnovers. If you could stay within that range of quarterback play with like an 80% rating or 80 rating, then I think you'll be good enough for this team to be able to achieve a lot of the goals that they set out to. Now, obviously, when it comes to playoffs, Super Bowl, stuff like that, we'll just have to wait and see where they are if this defense can carry a quarterback to that level and if they're playing at that level at the end of the season. But if they want to make the playoffs, possibly have a chance to win a division, I think those are the goals for DTR. You just want them to be similar to as good, if not a little bit better than what Jacoby Brissett is, which is a high bar for him and a high goal for him to reach. And again, I can't expect that out of him, but that's where I can put the goal for him to be at.
Yeah, 1,800 yards would be 225 a game. I mean, that's not crazy. I'd be surprised if he averaged that high.
I would too.
Anything more, I don't think that's crazy, though.
I think
that's
Deshaun Watson's gone over that number once or twice.
Yeah,
in all of his starts here.
Yeah, but DTR hasn't been, on hold for 2.5
I'm
years.
way more worried about the turnovers than the passing
Yeah, the
yards.
turnovers
I am
is the
too.
biggest thing. And that's what we're going to find out. Like, if this was a year ago, 2 years ago, I would say 100% the Browns season is over because of the way offense has been. Because defense is trending in the other direction right now, and because the Browns defense has been so great, we still give them a chance. Certainly they have a reasonable chance to make the playoffs. I think their odds of winning in the playoffs are going to be very slim unless DTR is, Brock Purdy or something close to that. But, man, if he threw for 1,800 yards and kept the turnovers, not out of control, to me that's a huge win for the Browns if he averaged 225 a game. I'd be happy if he threw for 1,400
I'll take
yards.
185, 190 and no turnovers.
Yeah, that's
no
about
interceptions.
1,400 yards.
Can't give teams short
1,400 yards and 5 turnovers in the last 8 games, I'd be thrilled.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big numbers to watch here when you're looking at DTR over the next few weeks in this offense in general is first downs. How many first downs can they create? They've actually done a decent enough job of doing it this year. They just haven't finished a ton of these drives. But if they can keep the first downs up, and again, just be similar to that offense last year where Jacoby Brissett had, like, I think, on average 345 first downs if you average his numbers out for a whole season. If you can get somewhere close to that, that means you're staying on the field, you're having these long drives, you're getting field goals or touchdowns out of these drives, and then you're asking the defense to just clean up along the edges while you dominate time of possession. If you can be that team does have a higher ceiling than I think people think, just because the quarterback play isn't great, especially if this defense continues to play at this level, which is not just best in the NFL. I mean, we're talking about a defense that's playing similar to the levels of a 2015 Broncos or 2017 Eagles. Now, they got to finish playing at that level, but we saw what those defenses did to the floor of their quarterback play. They rose them to a point to where you were able to achieve greatness with not great quarterbacks.
No,
well, not great playing quarterbacks at the time with Peyton Manning.
I mean, Peyton Manning was certainly great, but not at the time. You make a great point. And one of the things that has me most optimistic, Quincy, and I'm curious where you are on this team was built to run the football. And, you know, the injury in week 2 to Nick Chubb at the time seemed devastating. And I think if you would have polled 1,000 Browns fans and asked them, how many of you believe that the Browns will have the number 2 rushing game in the NFL going into week 11 when you're going to play 9 games without Nick Chubb, 8 games, whatever it's been to this point? I don't think many would have said that this was sustainable.
But the Browns don't have a number 2 rushing game.
Where are they in rushing yards?
They're number 2.
Yeah, but that includes Nick Chubb.
For one game, Bull.
Nick Chubb only includes like 200 yards of that.
Yeah.
Like
You take out 200 yards.
Well, somebody would have gotten those yards in the game.
This whole
The
debate.
Browns don't have the number 2 running game.
This whole
in the league.
debate
We know
about the
that.
Browns
Come on
run. Now, listen, the Ravens game, it was there.
And that's my
legit.
point.
But before that,
It had been mediocre.
yeah,
But
it really
for
was.
For the year. I'm not going to
totality.
discount that
You
they're
talk
number
about
2.
the eye test all the time. We
Bull.
know their running game has not been very good until the Ravens game.
What are you
It hadn't
talking
been.
about?
Mikey, give me metrics on the Browns
Well,
run game.
Bull.
Yeah.
I would say this, though. If you even just go since the bye week when Nick Chubb was not here, the Browns have averaged 151.4 yards
I'll take it.
a game.
I'll
so
take
that's
it.
all
Because-
without Nick
and
Chubb.
they're-
Hold
and
on, last
nobody said
year
they were
with Nick
terrible.
Chubb, they averaged 153 yards a game. So
Quincy.
that's only 2 yards below that.
because they're running it twice as
They're
much
running
as they
it
were
way
last
more
year.
than most teams.
Good.
That doesn't make them the second
They're
best
still
running
averaging
team.
4.2 yards per carry. Like, they're not Nick Chubb. Of course they're not Nick Chubb, but they're still
Quincy,
one of the better
Quincy.
rushing
Before
teams in
the
the
Ravens-
NFL.
You
because
think
right
the Browns
now,
are one of the
who
better
are the
running
elite
teams in the
running
league
backs
right
in
now?
the NFL?
Oh, my
Who
God.
are the best rushing teams in the NFL
Mike,
right now? Who?
Yeah, Mike Bull is absolutely incredulous that they're one of the better running teams.
I mean, now listen, the Ravens game.
They're a decent running game, and they played great against the Ravens.
The Ravens
They did.
game was terrific. That was Jerome Ford's best game. He was running
I
through
think
contact.
overall
He
they've been a
looked great.
mid-tier running
Where are-
team.
Hold on. Here's the problem we
Yeah.
got. We just crowned the Baltimore Ravens as one of the best defenses ever to move, and we just went into their house and ran the ball down their
Yes,
throat.
and we're giving them full credit for that.
And
So
maybe
why
going-
would I be mediocre if I could do that against a great
And
team?
maybe going forward they will be, but they haven't been that running team the whole year.
So all the metrics say they are, but you just said
no,
they
what
ain't.
metric?
The
We don't
metrics
have
say
any
that
metrics.
they
They're
are.
number
That's
two
what I asked
rushing
Mike.
team.
What are they?
I know
Mike?
I looked at 2 stats that had them, I think, number 2 and one was number 4.
They are tied for second in most rushing yards. They also do run the ball more than any other team.
But give
so
us the
it's
metrics.
pretty even. Yeah, I mean, they average 34.9 rushing attempts per league. That's first in the NFL. It's 2.5 more
Of
than
course
any-
I
they can
mean,
have it.
listen, before
That's not more
pre-
than they were running the ball last year. They were
Pre-Ravens
running the
game.
ball
No,
around
listen.
like 33, 34 carries a game.
Pre-Ravens game. I'm not talking about the Ravens game. Everyone was terrific in the Ravens game, and they get all the credit for that. Prior to that, I will show you scatter charts and everything else of Jerome Ford's, like,
Dude, we were
average
all screaming he shouldn't
He
play
was in the
anymore.
lower left tier. He was
Yeah.
in the worst tier of running
Come
backs.
on, Jay, you talk about
He had a
eye
terrific
test all
game
the
against
time.
Baltimore.
Bull,
Prior to
You
Baltimore,
talk about eye test
Bull,
all the time. Why?
You yell
you're
and
talking-
scream at me all
if
the
you're
time
talking-
that I'm
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
I can't
You
ignore
think the Browns have
numbers.
the second best running game?
Who's
I
better?
said they're among the best. And the
Okay.
stats back that up. So, yeah, I'm not backing down on
One
that.
stat backs it up. Total yards.
And-
because they run the ball more than other teams. It's
So-
not apples to apples.
I don't care. Here's the thing. We've talked now how
Yeah.
they're going to win moving forward.
Right.
How are they going to win? Ball control, check. Clock control, when you control the ball, you control the clock. They are statistically among the league leaders
In one statistic.
in rushing yards.
But when you take twice as many to get there, it's not
Wait,
efficient.
no,
You're not
Twice as many?
No,
Number two
you're
is
way
not
wrong on
16.
that. Quincy, help me out.
How many more
twice
carries?
as many. Who's number
Again,
two? They're
oh my
something
God, you
like
guys are
that.
going to make my
have that?
head blow off.
I'm looking for
Look,
the
look.
success
If you
rate.
want to make
listen,
the argument
you have to
that
go-
they've not been able to run.
Listen, the
consistently
argument that
at the
Bull and I
level
are
that
talking
they
about,
were
if you
without
go
Nick Chubb
if you
before
go from
last
the
week, you
time
can
Nick
make that
got hurt
argument.
until prior to the Ravens game, their yards per carry was among the
terrible.
worst in the league.
You guys know
That's
that.
what
What are you
we're
talking
saying.
about?
They are currently 11th in the league in yards per carry. 11.
And what was it prior
Which is-
to the Ravens
I
game?
don't.
That's what I'm saying. That's the
not
point that we're
splitting,
trying to
but-
make.
but
Did it go
okay,
up
so
that
you're going to
much?
take
Yes.
someone's best season out and then say what was it?
No,
beyond-
the
besides
point that we're making is it was one game. It was the most recent game. It was one game. Now they have to do it again
And,
Right.
and
hold on.
again.
And by the way, even
Yes.
with the Ravens game, if you took Nick Chubb out, it's probably 15th, which is what I said.
Quincy, make
yards per.
your point.
Yeah, Quincy's on.
Make
the
your
phone
point.
here. Go ahead, Quince.
Okay, it's not just one game though, Jason. Like it's been multiple games that they've had good rushing attacks in here. Now I see what you're saying. It was like, hey, there's some games where Jerome Ford had like a 70-yard run, and then they really didn't put anything together play by play. And I will agree, the Baltimore game was the first one where they were able to run and get those 7-10-yard gashes like they used to with Nick Chubb at will. But that doesn't mean that the run game hadn't been effective to that point. Like it had been effective in all of the wins that they had. It was an effective run game versus San Francisco. It was an effective run game versus Tennessee. It was an effective run game versus the Cardinals. It's not Nick Chubb. Nobody is saying it's anything close to what you had with
Yes,
Nick
you
Chubb.
are. You guys
But
said it was
is
an elite
clearly-
running game. You did say it was close.
I didn't.
Number
Nobody
two,
said elite. You
elite
put
to
words
me.
in our mouth. We said it was amongst.
Jay
the best
literally
in the
just
league.
said it,
And
Quincy.
Quincy,
now-
I'll say it.
Right
I'll say it.
now,
I will
I
say
don't
it.
agree
If you're
with
number 2 in the
elite,
league, I'm
but
giving
I
you
will
elite.
say,
Then you must be
Yeah,
judging
well, I
pitchers
will
based
say,
on
like,
wins, because
also-
that's the same thing.
No, I'm not.
in the context of what we're talking about with other rushing attacks in the league, the Browns are a top 5 rushing offense because right now nobody else is really outrunning the Browns. So like they're doing a really good job. Jerome Ford's averaging above 4.2 a carry, so like, it's really
By the
good.
way-
like this is still a really good rushing attack.
By the way, Quincy, you said they ran well against Tennessee. They averaged 2.5 yards per carry against Tennessee.
Isn't that the game they ran
Okay,
like
there
40
was one
times?
wrong I got there, but okay.
They had 31 carries for 78 yards.
I think that was also the game.
And if
It
you
was funny
take it,
because
if you take out Deshaun
Well,
Watson,
no. A lot of those carries were at the end of the game, though, Bull, right? Because it was a blowout, and they were just running into like 12.
you said they had a big running game against the Titans. I didn't say it. You
Because
said it.
if you go from the third quarter when the game wasn't blown out by 20, they ran the ball well. If you just look at the effective carries in the game, Bull.
Jerome Ford
you
had
talk
10
about
carries
eye
for
test,
18
look
yards
at the
in that
runs
game.
when the game mattered.
Quincy, Jerome
Look
Ford
at
had
the
10
runs when the
carries
game
for
mattered.
18 yards.
Because the game was blown out by the second half, and all they
Yeah,
had to do was run to kill the clock.
And Quincy,
Okay.
one other
All
thing
right.
too, like I mean, we can cherry pick stats all day. We can do that. I got.
Well,
this
you only
stat,
got one
that
stat. I got a
No,
52 stats.
I'm giving you the measurable stat. So
I just gave you a million stats.
If we look at what's the measurable stat for team play, wins, right? Now there are a lot of times you can look at a team with 6 wins. You can even do this with the Browns and say, yeah, but it's a win. You can't take that away. In rushing, I'm looking at average rushing yards per game, and the Browns, and that's not one game cherry picked, 10 for 18. On the season, they're averaging the second most yards on the ground in the NFL.
Where are they
I
in
can't
average
ignore
yards?
that.
Average yards per carry. Mike,
11.
11. They're 11.
Okay, that's about
And
basically
by the
what I
way,
said.
the difference between 11 and 3 is like
What?
3 yards. So it's inches.
Yeah. Bull, where do you think this rushing offense is at?
I said
Like,
they're
can
a
I get a
mid-tier
clear
running
target
back
from you?
game. I thought that was being generous
11's
before
not
last week,
mid-tier?
and they were better.
They are absolutely mid-tier.
Of course they are.
Before the
What do you
Baltimore
guys-
game. Before the Baltimore
Okay.
game.
No,
they
no.
get full credit for the Baltimore game. They
So
kicked
before
their
they
ass.
they had not had a
rushing
great
defense
game
in
running the
NFL
ball
that they're
before-
qualified to play and gashed them. Hold on. before they played the best rushing defense in the NFL and gashed them. Oh, they were mediocre, but
We
now
want
they
to
have a
take
good
that game out of the. We don't want to.
Nobody's
talk about
taking that game out of it.
We're
You did.
saying
No,
they
I
had been
didn't.
mediocre
I said from the
before that.
time
You
Nick
said they
got
were
hurt.
mediocre
From the
before
time
that
Nick got
game.
hurt
Thank you, Quincy.
until the Baltimore game, they were very average.
played
They were
well.
terrific last week. Nobody's taking anything away from last week.
So
They were
what does that
phenomenal
say,
last week.
Jason?
Yeah, what does that say? We can't
So
ignore
what does
that.
say?
I'm not ignoring it.
You're
I'm saying
ignoring the rest of the games. We're not
from the
ignoring that
time
game.
Nick got
I'm
hurt
using all of
until
them.
the Baltimore game,
Had they
they
been
were
elite
very
in any other
average.
game without Nick Chubb?
Here's what I'm
Had
saying.
they been elite in any other game? You talk about eye test all the time, Jay.
Let me tell
Had
you.
they been, yes
Hold
or no?
on, hold on.
Okay, now that you're done,
Hold
let
on.
me
Answer
answer
the
the
question.
question.
Go ahead, and I'll go.
I'm going to give you an aggregate.
So
Not
you're not
one
going to answer
game.
the question.
No, I'm going to give
Yeah.
you the view from 30,000 feet, not 50 feet. From an aggregate standpoint, this Browns defense is number 2 in the league in average yards per game. I will give you that they run it more, not twice as much. They run it more. They're a team that was built to run. I'm glad they're running it as much as they are. I was yelling for them to run it more last year.
Yep.
They're good at running the football, and my initial point that started this was
You still haven't
I
answered
don't
my question,
think
by the
that
way.
you would have had many Browns fans that would have told you that going into Week 11 with Nick Chubb on the sidelines for 9 weeks, this team would average the second most yards per game in the NFL. Those are all facts. I'm not making that up. And Quincy sees it the same way. I think G does too.
I'm going to just tell you, y'all talk about these eye tests and all that. I'm going to tell you what I know test. See, I've been up front when I got blocked by people like the Browns. So if you ain't had your hands in the trenches, you don't understand. I know what elite looks like. When you put the tape on a Wyatt Teller and he bulldozing people, when you put that tape on a Joe Batonio, see, y'all can talk all the stats you want. You go ask the defensive lineman that's playing against the Browns and say, who's elite? They're going to tell you the Cleveland Browns is an elite running attack because of what they put on film, what they can do. And it ain't about how much you're running and what you're running it for. It's about, do you know we running it and can you stop it?
And Baltimore knew we were running it.
And
Can I
they
ask a
couldn't
more
stop it.
productive question here?
Sure.
Can I
Go
ask
ahead,
a more
Quincy.
productive question to Bull and Jason?
Yeah.
Where do you think that this rushing game is going to go, given that Jerome Ford's a young running back who seems like he's starting to put it together? Where do you think they can go at the end of this year?
I mean, I think they have a
'Cause we know
chance
where you
to
think
keep
they are.
improving. Jerome Ford was impressive. I thought Jerome Ford had been very bad until this game.
He was.
He had been very bad.
Let's not forget that he
I
had a
don't think
high
that's
ankle
been
sprain
true.
that they
I
said
think
was
it's
going to
been-
keep him
Okay,
out
but
for
you
weeks.
guys were with us when we said they should bench him, basically.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
wanted to see more of another running back.
Right. Yeah.
Now, and they astutely pointed this out during the broadcast, give Jerome Ford credit because when the original injury was announced, we thought it was going to be multiple games. And the big story was this guy's back to practice
back.
doing agility drills and looks great. Now, he played a game and did not play well. I'll readily admit that. Now, I'm willing to say, because I've had a high ankle sprain, and I think most of us have, it's hard to get to the bathroom. Yet this guy was on the field, so I can't judge him for the poor numbers that he put up
Let me
in
bottom
that
line
game.
it. Let me bottom line it from my perspective, and I think Jason's perspective. Jerome Ford played great in the Ravens game, and maybe going forward,
Maybe
and
he
they
will.
will play great.
That would be
We're not
great.
saying that can't happen.
No.
We're saying we don't. You're making it seem as if it's a sure thing based on total yardage.
I wasn't projecting.
When they have way more carries.
I wasn't
the
projecting,
reality
Bull.
is that between Nick Chubb getting hurt and this past week, the Browns' running game had been mid. We're not saying it's going to be the rest of the year.
Well-
You're just talking as if it's a
Go ahead,
sure
Quincy.
thing the rest of the season.
No, I
I
didn't.
think
I wasn't
also the
projecting. I
Seattle
just said
game
up
is
to this
being
point.
erased
What's
in
that?
this conversation too, because the Seattle game is being erased in this conversation. That was another game where the run game carried you throughout most of the game, despite the turnovers that you had with PJ Walker in the offense, and that was against one of the better rushing defenses in the NFL too. So this is not the first time they've done this against a very good team. They've done this before, and they've been a good rushing offense against good teams before this year. So I think this is just showing you who they are and who they can be, and I think the more snaps Jerome Ford gets, the better he's going to be. We've seen Kareem Hunt be a really great short yardage situation, and then you could throw in Pierre Strong every once in a while as a change of pace there. And I think you have a nice rotation that has led you to second in rushing yards
And
in
that
the
was my
NFL
point.
because you don't
And they
get
were
the
not
second
great
like
against
those
Okay.
They were not
You
great
don't
against
get the
Seattle.
second.
They were mid against Seattle.
All right, this is the best I can do with my
Oh,
phone.
my goodness.
After the Cardinals game, I wrote this after the Cardinals game. So prior to the Baltimore game,
Okay.
prior to the Baltimore game, Cleveland's backs averaging 3.7 yards a carry since Chubb's injury at Pittsburgh, ranks 25th in the league.
Okay,
That's what we're saying.
But Jay,
that's all we're saying.
When you give that stat,
Who cares about
that
before?
means nothing to
We
me.
talking about
You're basing your whole argument on
we
one
talking
stat.
about
No,
we talking totality of the season.
I will tell you why that means nothing to me. Because if you take any player's best game out,
Why are we
they
caveating
suddenly
that?
regress
Again, we
back
can't
to
win
the
here.
means. Guys,
Well,
I'm not
it's
giving you.
not-
Where's my hood?
You're
Where's my
taking
hood?
away
You
the
can
other-
hide all you want, but you're
I'm
hiding
not
your head in the
hiding.
sand.
I just
Jason,
said before the Baltimore game they sucked.
Okay, where
That's
are they?
all we were
Okay,
saying.
it's not-
That's all we're
But
saying.
we're
It's not that
saying that.
simple,
All we
though,
said
Jason.
is
The Baltimore
before this
game just
they weren't-
happened.
They weren't special.
So why are we delineating before anyway?
We're going to forget the Baltimore game and everything?
No, nobody's forgetting the Baltimore game. We
You are.
all hope that it continues that way.
You
But
are.
it was one game. It was
Yes,
one
but
game.
guess what?
And they
I've
ran
given-
great.
You're
They
saying
ran
the other
great.
games are
Jason.
meaningless, Jay.
No.
You're saying the other games are
We
meaningless.
never said
No, I'm
that.
not.
We
No,
never
I'm not.
said
Yes,
that.
guys, we
He
got to
never
move
said
on. We
that.
got to move on.
Wait,
I'm just
wait,
gonna-
wait.
Go ahead,
Time out,
Quincy,
time out,
make a point.
time out. So the point is like, do you really think that this team wins these games that they've won with no quarterback for the majority of them if the running game is as mid as you're saying? Like,
It is
that's
mid. They
really
won it
how
because
that
of the defense.
They won
Because
because
it
you
is
have
mid.
one
One mid.
stat
It's
that you pulled up in one
One
article.
it's
know.
yards
It's
per
mid.
carry.
What's your stat besides
It's
total
one
yards?
stat.
It's yards
You
per
got
carry.
one star.
Besides total
rushing
yards.
touchdowns, they're on track to be on the same pace as they were last year. They've been excellent in short yardage, third down
3.7 yards
situations.
a carry, 25th in the league.
Without
and you're
their best
telling me
game.
they're
But
elite.
Jason,
Without
how
their
many
best game.
of those yards?
We were
how
saying
many of
before
those
that
carries?
game, Jay.
We're saying before
Why do you
that
not
game.
understand?
So one
How
game
many
makes
of
them
those
elite.
Before that
carries?
game, they've been mid. They
I'll-
were great.
I'll
Guys,
clear it
how
up.
many of those carries
Yeah.
happened at the end of some blowout games?
No,
They're
it
just
was-
running the ball into.
Oh,
there
come
were
on.
like
No,
20
no,
or 30
absolutely
of those
not.
carries.
Absolutely
Like,
not.
last-
You said they were
Absolutely
great
not.
against
Serious
Seattle.
right
They
now?
averaged
We don't
4 yards a
remember
carry.
that?
That's
We don't
not great.
remember them running into a 8-man box for like 2 quarters because the game was over with DTR in it? Like, come on. Like,
Well, Quincy, the danger of
it's
doing
disingenuous
that.
to look at this rushing offense, see them get to number 2, and say, well, they had 3.7 yards per carry. Not
We got,
investigate that
listen,
stat
here's the
any
bottom
further
line.
to see
We've
the
given you about a
context
dozen
around it.
stats. You guys
There's
have one
context.
stat and nothing else.
He's
So
giving
you
me
got no
one
facts to
stat.
back
No.
up what
What
you're
are you
saying.
talking about? A dozen stats. I've been the
All
one
right.
spitting out facts this whole segment.
No,
You're
you
giving
haven't.
me
All
one
right,
stat.
I'll find the scatter
You're giving
chart
me
with Jerome
3.7
Ford
yards
in
per
the
carry.
worst
That's all
box
you've
you
given
can
me.
have.
The most yards
I don't even.
per
You know
game.
what?
That's
I
all
don't
they got.
care about a scatter
All
chart.
right.
Oh, my
Here's what I care
God.
about. And really, honestly, numbers are so tricky. Everybody knows that. You can pick a number to make your case for anything.
Yeah, we
however,
picked 10. You got 1.
However, for my purpose, I want to take the number that
You want to take the only stat that helps your argument.
No, I
got
don't.
it.
I want to take the total stat.
Yeah.
I don't want to look at a snapshot before this game, or I don't want to look at a quarter against
don't
this
nobody
team.
care about that.
I want to look at when information
You're
is
saying the
power.
only game that matters is this last game.
No,
That's it.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
Bull.
Yes, you are.
Listen to me.
I'm listening to you. You're not listening to me.
I am not talking about a specific game. I am talking about the aggregate number for the season.
Yeah.
There's one metric that talks about the entire season, not a quarter, not before this game, not a half. I'm going to give you the biggest number that we have. Information is power. The more we have, the better we are at making a long-term opinion. The aggregate number for
One
yards.
stat.
It's one stat, but it's the one that means
That matters
the
the
most.
least, but go ahead.
Okay, so
All
you
right.
can say it means the least, but
Well,
it's yards per game.
Well, let me ask
what
you
are
this,
you
Jay.
averaging on the ground yards
Jay,
per
let
game?
me
And the
ask-
Browns are number 2.
Let me ask you this. If a quarterback plays crappy for 4 games, and
Yeah.
in the 5th game he's great,
Yeah.
and it skews the stats because one game will skew the stats,
Yeah.
you don't factor that in at all?
I look at the 5.
But that's
I
not
want
the
bigger
situation.
sample- No, it's
That's
a
what
bigger
he
sample
said.
size.
That's not the situation.
It's a bigger
That's not-
sample
that's a
size.
false
Give me the
premise.
biggest sample size you
That's
can.
not the situation,
Fine, I'm
though.
done.
Like,
I'm done.
I've
You
watched
are done.
this
You're
It's
show.
like
right.
talking.
I've seen y'all
It's like
talk-
talking to a
Wait.
wall.
Let's
Go
take
ahead, go ahead.
Let's take
Go
a
ahead.
vote.
I've
Go ahead,
watched
Q.
the show. I've seen y'all talk about PJ Walker and how they won in spite of PJ Walker.
Yes.
Well, if you think they won in spite of PJ Walker, then what was going right on the offense in spite of PJ? What was it?
Nothing.
Was it running?
No.
Because apparently not to you, it wasn't running. They just put up points by osmosis. Like, how did they score points in that?
Again,
the defense
Quincy,
scored the
we
defense
said the
scored every
running
point out
game
there?
was mid. That doesn't mean it's terrible. The passing game was terrible. We never said the running game was the worst.
But
We
you
said it
guys
was mid.
acting like PJ Walker might have been the worst quarterback to ever play
Yes.
in the NFL, right?
He
That's
is.
some of the stuff
Yes.
that I heard on the show. So you don't overcome that with mid-rushing games.
Thank you.
Yes, you do when you have a great defense.
You got to score points.
By the way,
Quincy, again,
let me ask you a
you've
question.
given. By the way, your two examples of great running games were Tennessee and Seattle.
So-
they were not good against Tennessee in the run, and they were mediocre against Seattle. So you're wrong. I'm sorry.
Nobody watching that Seattle game thought they were mediocre in Seattle.
Watch
Stop
this.
it.
They averaged 4 yards a carry. How good should they have been?
Let me set this up real quick. We're not talking about yards per carry.
What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about this. Hey, Quincy, how many times have you broken down all 22s and showed run game?
Oh, yeah. I broke down all season of the all 22 in the run game. And even at the beginning of the season when they weren't running well, it was like, oh, they're missing 1 or 2 blocks, and then they'll be able to get downhill. And then they started to do that past week 4.
So you took the time to watch the run game and people block and break down what they missed, what they did, and how they did, right? You took that time. You go watch them. They up there. Like and subscribe to the
You
channel.
watch them too.
I watch them too. So my thing is, what do you said the eye test, all that good stuff. I'm talking about the watch test. You can give me all them numbers you want. I done seen every snap and every rep. If you can't say that, you can't put that stat over what I'm talking about. Can we?
And that's what I'm saying. Like, when I watch the game.
Oh, Cat is quiet. Oh, it's
I'm done. This is not good
That
television.
all 22 is talking to boys, right?
No.
No, it don't.
I'm done.
We can
I'm
give
done.
stats
I'm
all
just
we
saying,
want.
you got to give credit for it.
This is silly.
We've argued long.
This is silly.
We've argued long.
I want to say
it turns into bedlam every time Quincy's on. Quincy, every time you're on, it turns into bedlam.
That's not a bad thing.
Let me give you a question on something else. What do you think of them bringing in Joe Flacco? What do you think of that?
I mean, like, hey, get a veteran in there, somebody to talk to, DTR on the sidelines if he needs any help. And if it goes horribly wrong with DTR, you probably would want to go to Joe Flacco. The truth is, with DTR coming in to shine out for the rest of the season, we're probably reverting this offense similar to what it used to look like with Jacoby Brissett. A lot of play action, a lot of underneath throws, and stuff like that. So the skill set needed at quarterback is now different than what you had with PJ, who replicates Deshaun's style. So I would look for Joe Flacco to eventually become the backup if they keep him on here and if he stays with the team long enough. Just in case the rookie does not go well, you have a veteran in there who you feel like can run the offense and be at least a competent game manager. So I really don't mind the pickup there. It's a little bit different. It's going to be weird to see Joe Flacco in a Browns uniform, but I do think that it's a solid enough pickup because Joe Flacco's proven he can get rid of the ball. He's not going to throw too many interceptions, and he's going to be super safe with it. So it's a good fail-safe just in case DTR doesn't work out.
Quince, we only have 30 seconds here, but before the Flacco, I mean, obviously they haven't signed Flacco. They're just going to kick the tires on him. Yesterday at this time, if you were to make a list of guys that you want to see the Browns bring in, who would be the top of that list of the guy that you wanted them to sign moving forward?
Oh, for this third spot, I mean, Joe Flacco would probably be around the top of it. I mean, the options just aren't that fruitful, right? You're talking about like either you get a young guy like Chris Oladokun who's been on some practice squads and has some promise,
right,
or you're getting like an old washed up guy, or you're like at best in between, you're getting like a Trevor Siemian, right? I think Joe Flacco is a better option than both of those, and if they go with him, I have absolutely no problems with it. It's slim pickings at this point in the season, right? Like if you're talking about getting a Philip Rivers that's been out the league for 4 years or 3 years at this point, and is old, or like trying to convince Tom Brady, those just aren't realistic options. I think that's probably the best you could do. And again, it's going to be about ball control, first downs, and time of possession. And I think Joe Flacco is the best option out there if that's what you want to do, and if DTR can't get that taken care of.
Yeah, let's hope it all works out. Quince, great to see you again. Great job. And tell people quickly where they can see your show, because I'm with G. I love watching your show. I think you have great Browns content. Where can folks see you?
Oh, yeah, appreciate it. You could just put Quincy Carrier, Quincy Carrier, like you see on the screen. Just put that in your YouTube search bar and hit the search button. I'll pop up. You'll see my videos pop up. I also have other projects. Check me out. I cover the AFC North as well with my friends. I'm on AFC North Talk, so I do a number of different projects. They're all on the channel. Make sure you check that out. Appreciate y'all for having me on.
No, absolutely. Thanks. You do great work. Thanks, Quince. Always good to catch up with you.
Appreciate you, dog.
Even if, as Adam says, every time he comes on, he drops a bomb in the middle of the room. I don't think that's a bad thing.
By the way,
I like that.
I do too.
Good stuff, Quincy.
Thanks, my man.
By the way,
didn't mean to raise the blood pressure up.
No, we're glad you did, actually.
The Guardians have traded Cal Quantrill to the Rockies for an A-ball catcher.
Which we kind of saw coming, right? I mean, that was their only option with him.
Right. They had DFA'd him, so they had to trade him.
Something.
At least they got something for him. Not much. God, when you consider where he was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yikes. Okay, Mike.
All right, we're going to go to a 5-pack of McNuggets stats here. I have a headache from that, so we're going to try getting us back on track to reel us in. And ironically, and I swear this was unintentional, our first stats about the Browns running game. I'm not kidding. Against Baltimore, guys, this is actually
Where
this
were
is
you with
relevant.
the analytics, Mike? You're usually always there with the analytics.
This
He was not stepping into that. He was like, no, I'm
There
cool.
was nothing I could do there. It was pure
Yeah.
chaos. But this is from the Baltimore
Stay out of the
game.
crossfire.
This is from the Baltimore game. This is, I think, important for the Browns moving forward in
'Cause
terms
it's gonna be who
especially
they
with
have to
DTR.
beat.
So against Baltimore, they had 12 rush attempts for 31 yards under center, which not very good, 2.6 yards per carry.
Right.
But from the gun, they were extremely effective. 24 carries for 147 yards.
No,
a
we don't look at
6.1
yards per carry
yard
anymore. That doesn't matter.
Average. 2.4 under center.
does.
6.1 from the gun. Now, obviously, more sample size, 24 to 12, but they were significantly more effective from the run, and that's
Wait,
important.
Gene, why would that be? Because teams are thinking pass and they're catching them off guard?
When you talk about shotgun runs?
Yeah, I mean, typically teams will run it under center, but they do run it from the gun. But those stats are
That's for the
opposite ends
season,
of
Mike?
No,
So that was just
Baltimore.
against
Just the
Baltimore.
Baltimore game.
Bring them back up.
It was
I'm
6
sorry.
yards,
Yeah,
essentially 6 yards per carry in the gun and 2 something under center. Now, I'm sure that
yeah.
every team probably has similar numbers, but that to me seems like it's a really
I don't know about
No,
that.
That's a
much
big
bigger.
spread.
I think it's unusual. I don't think teams have
Yeah,
similar.
it's
No, I said I think mostly I would guess that under center, the defense knows it's more likely to be a run. So my guess is that you would average fewer yards per carry under center, but that stretch, but 2.6 to 6.1, that's big.
Well, the Browns are running a lot less. You know, I think who was talking about this? The boot action is just not like Jake Burns was talking about this when he had a film breakdown. The Browns used to run a lot of stuff under center, and they used to get a lot of give me throws with Baker Mayfield because of the boot game. And now teams are playing the boot so well that some of those plays and options aren't really there. So, you know, there's not going to be play action a lot. So if you don't have the threat of play action, you're going to have less yards per carry because guys are going to be up there and they're going to be expected to
Sure,
run.
load the box and
And so the Browns have kind of done a little break tendency. The Browns really have never run the ball really well out of gun. If you even go back to when they had Nick Chubb, they never really ran it that well out of the gun. But here's what you're starting to see. That pull and pin action that they're doing with the guards and the centers and tackles, when that little toss play, Kareem Hunt runs that really well. Guys are now getting downhill, and Jerome Ford is actually starting to run that a lot better. He broke 2 of those plays in terms of that with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He broke a long one against the Seattle Seahawks, and he broke another one, broke a couple of them against the Ravens. So, you know, now that they've got that pull and pin action, they're going to have to come up with something outside of that. But
Teams will adjust,
teams will
right?
adjust.
Yeah.
But they never really did a good job of that before.
I know we're talking run game, but Deshaun has always been a shotgun quarterback. He's
Right.
very comfortable in the shotgun. And I was talking to him before we knew about the shoulder. I was talking to him after the Baltimore game, and he said that Kevin likes putting him under center at times to try and get certain looks out of the defense. Now, I wish I could tell you what those looks were. He didn't tell me.
Right.
But I think it's Kevin trying to get now whether it's run pass, I'm just telling you what he told me.
Right.
Kevin likes at times getting the quarterback under center to try and get certain looks out of the defense. Now,
Interesting.
if that has anything to do with what we're talking about here, I can't
do
tell
you think they'll run as much out of the gun with DTR
That's
if
a
it
good
was something
question.
that Watson was particularly
DTR
comfortable
only
with?
when he did not go under center at all in college. Straight shot.
No, I know he didn't in college.
But
they're not
Deshaun
gonna
was
do-
the same way at Clemson and at Houston, where he was all shotgun. And
I
he
think
told
they're
me
going to try to make
he
him
loves
comfortable.
shotgun. I would think that
which
you
would
want
mean
to
he'd be out of the shotgun.
Hell,
would-
if you can run that successfully out of the gun,
Do they have?
I mean, to your point, teams
do we
will
have
make
numbers for the
adjustments
rest
to
of the
that.
season on that, Mike?
I'd have to do I went back and watched all the run
Yeah.
plays to do that myself. So
yeah,
I'm
I
not
wish
sure.
we had a global number too from
Yeah.
the NFL. Like, what are all carries when the quarterback's under center?
Because
what are
I
they
think
average,
there are teams
and
that
what are
run
they
better
average?
with the quarterback under center.
Yeah, there are like teams
mean,
like
look,
Baker Mayfield. Baker during those years, the team ran much better under center. Baker was
I know
under
the
center a
Bengals
lot.
run
Yeah.
better when Burrow's under center. By the way, a couple of Browns injury updates. DeJuan Jones has some video here just a minute ago of him practicing. So it looks promising.
Oh, that's good.
He's practicing. Juan Thornhill and Marquise Goodwin did not practice, so I got to assume those guys
They
are
are
not playing.
most likely not going to play. And
Yeah.
Coach Tyvis coming up in the TV show in a few minutes has a Coach Tyvis breakdown on why Thornhill has been so important to this Browns defense. How McLeod can step up in his shoes.
good.
The Browns hired Bill Musgrave this offseason as an offensive analyst who specialized in the shotgun run game. It hadn't been great earlier this season.
Right.
I'll do some digging for the numbers, but against Baltimore was at its best. Second stat of the day. It's Jekyll and Hyde Kenny Pickett, and it makes, frankly, not a ton of sense. In the first half of games this season, he's been completely average. 56% dead smack in the middle of the league. 742 yards, dead smack middle, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. In the second half, and mainly the fourth quarter, he transforms into someone he is not in the first 45 minutes of the game. Passing percentage goes up, yards go up, interceptions go down. His QB rating jumps up 30 points. And more importantly than anything else, trailing in the fourth quarter with 4 minutes to go, he's 10 of 12 passing, 176 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 56.3 quarterback rating. The highest you get is a 158.2. Yeah. Damn near perfect. And in 22 career games, he has 7 game-winning drives.
That stat right there is sick.
It doesn't make a ton of
crazy.
sense. I can't really explain it.
I can't either.
But
It makes no
he's
sense.
at his best in the last couple minutes of the game.
I can't think of any other quarterback that's like. There's other guys who are great late in games, but usually they're at least good the rest of the game. He sucks the rest of the game, and he's been really good late in games.
That's when you want him to be good. That's like Deshaun was 6 of 20 in the first half, 14 of 14 in the second half. Like, I know you can overcome what you do in the first half. You can't overcome what you do in the second half if it's bad.
I think a lot of it is, so we look at people who perform well in the fourth quarter as clutch. Sometimes people perform well by sample size. So if you're a guy that starts off slow and you don't diagnose what the defense is doing to you throughout the game.
You're saying he's getting better as the game goes on because what he sees.
It's like going down. It's like being a hitter the third time through the lineup. If you got a pitcher that's throwing BBs the first two times you see him, by the time you get to the third or fourth time at a bat, you on him. You done seen a bunch of pitches.
That's a good point.
He's seeing what the defense is doing, and now he's like, okay,
but that's
I'm more
unusual,
comfortable.
G, for a guy to be that bad for most of the game.
It's unusual.
And, I mean, he doesn't
Tim
look like
Tim Tebow had that weird quality too. He sucked.
he doesn't even look like an NFL quarterback most of the time.
Jay, let me ask you a question because I read something earlier this week, and I wish I would have bookmarked it because I would love to bring up what the exact numbers were. The overall view was that since they've moved Canada from the box to the field, they've been a better offense. I don't know that there are many offensive coordinators on the field, and why would that help?
I don't know. I mean, AVP is. I know he doesn't call the plays, but AVP's on the field for the Browns. But most offensive coordinators are in the booth.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that. First of all, I mean, they had to try something with them, but it's worked.
Yeah.
I'm not saying their offense is great now, but it was marginally better since they've moved him down on the field.
And I think, too, like, how much is this is a function of the Pittsburgh Steelers' defense does not allow them to get put away or blown out? If you always got very close games, you give yourself a more opportunity to win some of those games. Because think about it, some people don't get chances for comebacks because their defense the game is over. The offense put a field goal, a touchdown on, and the game is now garbage time.
Well, if you remember the first time they played, the Browns absolutely dominated that football game. Going into the fourth quarter, they had the lead. They held Pittsburgh's offense to minus yards in the fourth quarter, yet they lost the game because their defense had the strip sack, fumble, touchdown.
Those are things that happen. You know, like we say all the time. You know, we go back and forth about run, pass, defense, all this. It's just complimentary football. Yeah, it's complimentary football to know that, okay, I know I got T.J. Watt, I got Highsmith over here, I got a defense that they can't score on. Even if I'm a quarterback and I'm like, okay, I might want to take a deep shot because I'm a little frustrated. I haven't been able to go downfield. He knows in his head, hey, this defense is going to give me the ball with good field position and give me another opportunity to go down the field.
Some quarterbacks work better in tempo too. Yeah. And that's the stat that really jumps out is the 7 wins in 22 games.
33% of the games.
I mean,
he's had a fourth quarter game.
If I'm Pittsburgh, I might want to just start flirting with the idea that you're putting him in a bit of a hurry up, just a tempo offense, because it seems like he operates better out of that faster tempo. Some guys do.
All right, next up is a little love for a guy, David Njoku. This season, he's 9th in the NFL in terms of tight ends and targets. He averages 6 per game, but he's also first among all NFL tight ends in yards after catch average, and he's forced 13 missed tackles, first in the NFL. And that goes back to what Bull said the other day when he carried Geno Stone 17 yards down the field against Baltimore and kind of established his physical dominance. Me and Tyvis did the Njoku strong workout. I'm guessing that's where part of the strength comes from. But this dude has been the hardest tight end in football to tackle, and he has been one of the most important and irreplaceable players in this Browns offense, especially with the uncertainty at quarterback. And Njoku deserves some love because he's been phenomenal the last couple of weeks.
He does, and we were, especially me, we were all critical of the contract extension. in some way, shape, or form. We're glad that we had him, but we thought they overpaid for him. But I think that it's worked out. I'm okay with that move because, God, no telling where this offense would be without him right now.
Yeah, I think one of the adjustments that Kevin Stefanski was making is, I would go back to the first Baltimore game where, Baltimore was really playing with a lot of guys in the line of scrimmage. And so the check release was wide open. David Njoku would check, chip, make sure that everything was squared away, and then he would release downfield. The crazy part about it is now they're hitting those routes. They're starting to realize that, guess what? Those are almost long handoffs. Those are almost screen passes. So he's checking and releasing, getting in the flats. And now when you drop your coverage into zone, what you got is David Njoku with a 6-7 yard head start, and DB's trying to tackle him. And that's why he's getting that head of steam and you get the ball short to him really quickly with a head of steam, he's getting 13, 14 yards because he's such a wiry dude to bring down. I like the adjustment that the Browns have made in order to get the ball out quicker.
I also feel like him being a threat now in the offense helps the running game. I think
for
it's
sure.
Something else that the defense has to pay attention to.
And another thing that helps the running game is what a good blocker he's turned into. And full credit for him for that. Because
Absolutely.
it wasn't that long ago, guys. They brought Austin Hooper in here, and David wanted out.
Facts.
And he was trying to get out. And Kevin's the one that got him back in the boat. Not only did he get him back in the boat, he totally turned around and not Kevin, but David turned around what type of blocker he was. He wasn't a very good blocker earlier in his career.
No, he
he's
wasn't.
an excellent blocker now, and he's totally bought in. Does he earn every dollar of that contract? I don't know, but there isn't nothing. It's sort of like the left tackle debate and the right tackle debate.
What else are you going to get?
Who are you going to get?
Yeah.
If you move on from that guy, okay, well, fine. What else is out there? And there wasn't. A tight end is another. It's not a left tackle premium, but it's a premium position in terms of what his skill set is. So I'm totally fine with.
Yeah,
we
he's
know
turned it
what
around.
he is.
He has
We know what
turned it
he
around.
is. He's never going to be in the Kelsey category. We
Right.
know that by now. But what he does provide is very good.
He's not in the elite tier. He's
Right.
not Kelsey. He's not Kittle. He's
Right.
not Hawkinson.
He's in that next tier, though, isn't
But
he?
he's in
now.
he's definitely in that. He's moved into that next group. He's probably somewhere like between 6th and 8th best tight end. And even if he's not worth every last dollar, so what? He's worth $1 million less, whatever. It does at this point? Yes, he's finally put it all together. This is clearly he's on his way to his best year. Like Myles Garrett, he stayed healthy this year, and he's those numbers, yards after catch and broken tackles, being the best in the league. He's he always had the physical skill. But he was always dropping balls, and he didn't use his physicality as much. He's put it all together this year. It's been impressive.
And kudos to the Browns. We killed him. I did when they signed him. I thought it was a bad decision.
He's been worked
I'd
at
hate
it.
to think where this offense would be without him. Mike, number 3.
All right, next
right?
up, this one is this is weird because it makes no sense to me. But the Steelers are 6-3 this year. They have 6 one-score wins. All 6 wins they've trailed. They've been outgained in all 9 games. I can't find a stat, an analytic. This makes no sense. There's no logical explanation they should be 6-3. They're probably more, if you look at the numbers, a 3-6 football team, not a 6-3 football team.
Right.
But somehow
Not
that
even on
dude in the
defense?
picture.
Could you find a stat?
They give up a ton of yards. They forced turnovers. They forced 18 turnovers, which
That's
helps.
the stat.
Yeah,
But-
that is the stat then. And
That's the
and
stat.
you can't measure culture and heart.
And that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin, and somehow this team finds ways to win games
They
in a
do.
probable fashion. And they deserve kudos for
Yeah.
it. But you
It's-
look at the numbers of this team, this is a 3-6 football team, not a 6-3
I agree with
football
you.
team.
It's insane that they're 6-3, but sometimes the numbers don't tell the whole story. And so the Browns are. I mean, the Steelers are a good example of that. I mean, frankly, the Browns are a good example of that.
They are this year.
They shouldn't be 6-3 based
they
on
are.
what they've done offensively, and yet they are too. So
Yeah, you take it.
I mean, now the Browns have turned it around because they've been forcing turnovers and not giving up turnovers in the last couple of weeks. But early in the season, remember they got out.
It was horrible. They were 30th in
Yeah.
the league, I think, in takeaways.
And
or in
so
the
it's
turnover
fifth.
margin. Yeah.
Sometimes you get the breaks in the big moments, and even though the Browns haven't got injury breaks, they've gotten some. They've made some big plays when it mattered, even in a game, and certainly the Steelers, even more than the Browns, have been outplayed all the time, and they've just made a couple of plays that made the
Let's
difference.
hope that trend changes Sunday.
What that tells me is the same with Baltimore. They don't beat themselves. You have to
Right.
go beat them.
That's
you
correct.
have to beat them.
And that's what good teams do.
And the Browns
And they're
did that
never-
last week,
yeah.
and that's what they're going to have to
And
do
they're never
Sunday.
done till it's over.
That's right.
You can't take your foot off the gas against teams
Absolutely.
like that.
All right, what's next?
Last one, we gave Njoku some love. Let's give JOK some love, too, because I was digging through the numbers, and it was on this same show last year with DeQuell Jackson, who's our guy. I was like, I'm not sure this dude's an NFL linebacker. And this year, he's been stellar. He has 16 tackles for loss or no gain this season. That's tied for
crazy.
first in the NFL with Fred Warner.
Wow.
It's already a
That's
career high.
unbelievable.
That is absolutely
He's on pace
unbelievable.
this season to set career best in tackles, sacks, tackle for loss, which he's already set. Fewest missed tackles. That says missed tackles, but it's fewest. He's only missed 1 tackle this season. He's missed at least 8 in his first 2. And fewest completions allowed. He's only allowed 6 completions against. It was in the 20s and 30s, which is pretty standard for a linebacker. That's actually it's not a bad number.
Right.
But it's 6 this season. He's on pace to allow 12.
The tackles for
which
loss
would also track
is nuts.
as one of the tops
That's
in
crazy.
football.
Yeah.
I don't want to discount the work that he's put in because I'm sure it's been great. But, Jason, isn't that just the Jim Schwartz factor? That he's using the guys that he has to their strengths, and he looks like a completely different player than he did last year.
And I think a lot of that is he's not fighting off linemen. You know, that when you fix the defensive tackle issue, when you fix the up front issue that they had last year, how many times we say it, fix the defensive tackles, everything on this defense is going to look different. And that's, I think, is a huge part of it. Obviously, they had a ton of injuries last year at the linebacker position. So now he's in a spot where the guys up front create all the chaos, and he just comes in and cleans it up. It's the perfect role for him. He's excelling in it. He's thriving. And, you know, I don't know if he could have done this in Joe Wood's scheme or not. I still think Joe – there's a lot of problems there, but he had car mechanics as defensive tackles last year, and you saw what happened as a result. And when you clean up the middle of the defense, now you're seeing what a massive, massive difference it makes. And the trickle-down effect is guys like JOK and Grant Delpit having monster years.
We don't follow every team as closely as we follow the Browns, but I'd be hard-pressed to find a player in the NFL this year that has improved more than JOK.
I totally agree.
I mean, he went last year was one of the worst linebackers in the league. This year he's been one of the best. I mean,
DeQuell literally said, I'd cut him.
Yeah.
I mean, listen.
And none of us disagreed.
He was
how
horrible.
could we?
He was horrible
Based
last
on what
year.
we saw. All right, Mike, is that your last stat?
That is my last stat, and we actually have a special surprise for you guys here, but in 10 minutes we go to WKYC, so make sure you guys tune into us on WKYC. It is brand new content, never seen before because we haven't done it yet, as Jay so eloquently pointed out earlier. But it is 30 minutes. We're talking about can DTR outduel Pickett. We're talking about the home field advantage the Browns have brought back this season. Is this a gotta-have win? Plus Coach Tyvis and some no-fence riders. You guys are going to love it. Make sure you tune in. And, guys, look who we found.
I know. I love this. Mike Polk is here. And just a little bit of quick setup before Mike's here to do something that we think is very important.
Yeah.
But earlier this week, when the Deshaun Watson story broke, Bull, who famously does not believe in curses, he's like, anybody who believes in curses is nuts. He texted us that morning and he goes, I may be as close to believing curses are real than I've ever been at any point
First
in my
time I
life.
considered the reality of it.
Because, you know, for Browns fans, curses are real.
Sure.
And with that in mind, tell us what you're about to do.
All right. Well, first of all, the real reason I'm here is to beg for people to come to the show I'm doing tonight at Pickwick and Frolic. I never come on to promote you guys, but I did talk to the manager yesterday, and I asked how attendance was looking, and he said, it's like the Browns' depth chart. Pretty thin. So I thought I'd come on and desperately ask people to come out. It's a fun variety show. Also, the headliner, Nate Craig, will be appearing. It's going to be a fun show. Come out. It's at doors at 9 tonight. Join us. All right. But as a treat for you guys, as a thank you for having me on to promote that show, I am also going to use my time to put a curse on the Steelers, an old Irish curse.
Let's get there.
Now,
do it.
these are passed down to me by my great-grandfather, James Patrick Kelly, from his father. He used to curse people. My father cursed people, and now I curse people for him. These are real Irish curses. They're not mean ones, by the way. We're not wishing injury upon anybody. I'm not hoping Cam Hayward gets injured. These are fun curses. I'm hoping that like some online pirates steal his identity and use his credit card to buy some speedboats, and it's a big legal hassle. I don't want Mike Tomlin. I don't want any ill will to come upon him, but I do hope that I do hope that he is framed for murder for somebody, and he didn't do it. He didn't do it, and it all gets worked out in court eventually.
Fun curses.
Right, fun curses. You know, it just gets dragged out for like 8 to 10 months. He's found innocent, but some people always still think he did it. That's what I want. That kind of curse. These are again.
So he's OJ, right?
Yes, pretty much. So these are some old Irish curses. These are again passed down to me by my great-grandfather, and they are in the original Gaelic, which I do not speak, so I will read the Gaelic and then I'll give you the translation. Can I get my music, my Irish curse music there, Mike? Here we go. Okay. Go inth on tuckus thu. That means may you be consumed by an awful itch. See, that's
I'm all
fun.
for that. I'm
That's,
all
Who was
for
that
but that's
for?
harmless.
Is that for everybody on the
Yeah, that's everyone on the Steelers.
Okay.
If you want to call them out for certain
Did that happen
people,
to the Yankees once here during a playoff game?
Here's
Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett.
Oh, this is for Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
Food sangwan agus damlan aberthagen. That means may you have ants and spiders in your marriage bed.
Yes.
Nice.
That'd
TJ Watt. TJ
Okay,
Watt.
TJ Watt. Here we go. Gun scroob thu droom bagger own. That means that you may scratch a beggar man's back one day. Let me give him another one. Hold on. Here's another one for
Not
him.
curse, Mike.
He deserves 2 curses.
Ma ifis nar kacher. And that means when you eat, may you not defecate. So we're wishing constipation upon you.
Wow.
That might screw
Okay.
up his game.
See, here's what I'm not going
Wow.
to do because it's too harsh. So I'm not putting this one on the Steelers, but this
Lamar
is one of my
Jackson
grandpas.
needed that curse
I
a
won't
couple
use
years
this one
ago
though.
in
This was
playoffs.
bad. I'm not putting this on you. Magat thu al bele gun cleric. And what that means is may you die without a priest in town with no clergy. See, I am not putting that on them. That's where I draw the line.
Okay. If
Because
you were to be a mean curse
I
guy.
wouldn't do it though. I wouldn't.
How about
Okay.
their 2 wide receivers, Deontay Johnson
Oh, good.
and
George Pickett.
That's perfect. That applies to these
Johnson
guys.
out?
No, he's playing.
Oh, I thought he was questionable last
Go inath a kat thu is go nith a dabala cat. That means may a cat eat you and may the devil eat the cat.
Yeah!
Yeah!
Okay, I'm gonna give them one more. I'm gonna give them one more. Ma food tamak lagar ba faradig. May you melt in the earth like snow off a ditch. Ooh, that's that's rough. And finally, this one's for all the Steelers, and then we're done. Pasat chu goth amar sling. May you marry a wench that blows wind like stone from a sling. That means I hope you marry a prostitute who farts.
Pause.
So that's it. Those are my curses. Come see the show, everybody. And also, I'm also anchoring the news at 7. I guess that you mentioned that since we're on the
Channel
station.
3.
Yeah, I always do, guys.
Yeah, every Friday. It's called Friday.
Yeah. I'm
Mike,
also,
you're the best.
Thanks.
See you on Channel 3.
I'm also filling in for Jay on Thanksgiving so he can be with his family.